I'd like to call to order the March 23rd special meeting of the RSU 25 School Board. We'd all join with me in the Pledge of Allegiance. To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Kind enough to take the attendance, please.
And I recognize all board members are present with the exception of Mr. Koff. He will be marked as absent, but you do have a quorum to proceed.
Thank you. So this is the time that we have public participation. And I would like to entertain the thought that we break public participation into two bits. One, to cover agenda items 1 through 3, which are the adoption of the school calendar. The next is to accept the proposed contract with the RSU 25 Teachers Association. And the third is to have possible action to enter a letter of intent with Mechanical Services. And then after we've gone through those agenda items, we have a second public participation so that we can talk to a matter which I suspect most of us are here for, which is about a consideration of a change to the football from 11-man to 8-man. So if anyone would like to publicly participate on the first 3 agenda items, this would be a great time to stand up and present yourself and address those 3 issues. If there's no one interested in talking about contracts, we will go through those agenda items and then we'll come back to public participation. I don't see anyone clamoring to get up here to talk about mechanical service contract, so let's go right over to the approval of the minutes first. We'll get these things.
You have a question?
I just had a question about the mechanical services contract. Is
Sure
that
thing,
for the-
come right on up.
So there is interest about that.
There is interest. It's not, I'll get my question out of the way. But is that my name is Keith Nealon from Bucksport. Just for the formal introductions. Is that for the Jewett project, the entire redo of the HVAC system, or is this for a separate HVAC, just the efficiency part for everything?
And the answer is yes.
Okay, it's a little of both.
So what it
Okay.
is we went through a process, it's Title 28, 15, and that's a part of the law where school districts can enter into agreements with energy efficiency companies per se, and those contracts would include energy efficiency projects and air quality projects.
Okay, so that would cover
So
the entire HVAC system for the Jewett
Right.
school. Okay.
So what they would end up being is basically the GC. They're still going for bids, they still take competitive bids from subcontractors.
Oh, okay, but it would funnel primarily through.
Yes.
Okay, great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. All right. So we've got adjustments to agenda,
I have none.
approval of minutes.
I move that we approve the minutes of March 15th, 2022.
Second.
Got a motion and a second on the minutes. All those in favor? Right, that's unanimous with one
One absentee.
absent. Yep. Communications correspondence,
Have none.
no old business.
Nope.
First thing on the agenda, consideration and possible adoption of school calendar.
You have in your packet the proposed calendar. As usual, we've gone through our process of working within the Hancock County region to align our contracts for the betterment of the HCTC program. By law, we can have only 5 dissimilar days. I'm very pleased to say that since this law has come into place, Hancock County has been the only county to meet that objective all years. We've met together in the region. We've come together with a contract. We've shared this with the teachers union to get their feedback. This has also gone through the curriculum committee as required. And the end product is what I present to you tonight.
I take it there are no changes from what we saw last.
No changes from the previous draft, yes.
Are there any questions for Jim on the calendar? Jim, what does the X mean?
The X is an exchange day.
Okay.
Okay, so it
It
counts
just,
as
it
a-
wasn't down in the key. That's why.
right, it counts as a professional development day. But what it's done is it's an exchange for teachers to do parent-teacher conferences, other activities that are in the evening. So it's a trade-off.
Any other questions? Then I would look for a motion.
Well, I move that we adopt the school calendar for FY 2023 as presented.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor of the motion? That is unanimous with one absent. Next, we have consideration of possible action to accept the proposed contract for the RSU 25 Teachers Association for the time period of September 1st, 2022 through June 30th, 2025.
Well, we've been actively engaged in negotiations with the teachers. We came to a tentative agreement as a group. That tentative agreement was presented to the teachers union participants, and they voted overwhelmingly in support to adopt the contract. Bring that back for your final ratification at the board level.
Do we need a motion now to accept it, seeing we haven't actually seen the contract?
Motion to adopt the calendar. I mean, the contract.
The contract.
Yeah.
Well, I move that we accept the proposed contract with the RSU 25 Teachers Association.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to accept the proposed teachers contract. All those in favor of the motion? And that is unanimous. Passed. Next, we have consideration of possible action to issue a letter of intent to work with Mechanical Services, VIMS, to complete energy efficiency, HVAC, and building envelope projects in accordance with 20A MRSA subsection 15915.
I provided your packet the sample letter of intent. And what this is it expresses our commitment to continuing on with the process. This will activate the completion of the complete audit of all of our buildings by Mechanical Services. They will then present to the Facilities Committee and the board as a whole the proposed projects. And at that point in time, we'll start having conversations about what projects will move forward and how we're going to proceed with those and how we're going to fund each of those projects. It's timely for us. We have some significant issues. We recognize we have no HVAC in the Jewett School. That's important. We also know our middle school exterior siding that is not masonry has failed. That's got to be replaced. We have two 30-plus-year-old boilers at the Miles Lane School that are not working effectively and have cost us tens of thousands of dollars to keep running this year. It's time that we start to really address these issues, as well as taking advantage of any energy efficiencies we can capture, knowing that we had a 40% increase in electricity. The cost of fuel has gone up significantly. So it's time to invest in order for us to create efficiencies and long-term savings. So my recommendation is we enter into this letter of agreement. Again, at this point in time, you've made no commitment to them. Part of the agreement with VIMS, what they presented in their RFQ proposal, is this work, whether we accept any of the projects or not, there will be no charge to us. Okay. But the likelihood is we will be doing some of these projects. So that's just a reality.
Any other discussion on Mechanical Services issue? Then I would look for a motion.
Well, I move that we allow Mr. Boothby to issue a letter of intent to work with Mechanical Services as stated in agenda item number 3.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor? And that is unanimous with one absent. Now we're at the part where we're going to reopen public comment. So we would like to make a comment on agenda item number 4 of football team. I ask you to please come up to the podium, state your name and the town that you're from, and let us know Would you like to tell us?
My name is Kay Russell. I'm from Bucksport. Well,
Just whatever you'd like to tell us.
I've been with the football program over 20 years. And I've worked closely with, these coaches and the players. And they have an honor that they go by. They go by discipline and tradition, pride and respect. And these boys, they're coming up this year, or this plan, have been waiting for this moment since third grade. This is what they've been waiting for, to come up here and play. And I know last year, it was our first year against other teams that are tougher than us, but we got us a wake-up call, and these boys have been in the locker rooms, I mean, not the locker rooms, the weight rooms. They've been running, they've been working out, getting ready for this season to come up. And I'm just basically begging you to give them one more chance. I know that they're doing 8-man and 5th and 6th and 7th. I understand that, but this is something these boys really, really need. And we're telling them to work hard. We're telling them to push. We're telling them to drive to be successful. And I'm sorry, but if you take away that this year, that kids are coming, it's all you're doing is letting them be easy, and it's not right. It's just, I know I have a son that's coming up, but it wouldn't matter. I'd stand here today if I didn't have a son coming up. It's important to do this. It's important to keep it for one more year. And it's tradition. That's what we're trying to push in the schools now, tradition. And we have to honor that right now. And I understand, later on, we're coming up, the 8-man, there's not a lot of people, and there's a lot of pros and cons, but I'm just asking you to think about how hard that they have worked here to be accomplished, to be successful. And that's what we have to do, is keep that tradition on. Sorry that I'm emotional. I just really, really believe in my heart this is the right thing to do. That's all I have to say, I guess. Thank you.
Thank you. Have any other public comment?
Carolyn Seidel, I'm from Bucksport. I have a couple questions. If we go 8-man, what is the plan to go back to 11-man? My understanding is 8-man football is for teams who have under 30 kids and just a building program, not a permanent program. I also wonder is this a good thing to move forward with after dealing with COVID last year? Many kids, there were some kids, including my grandson, that missed 2 games because of COVID. And you never knew who was going to be there or not because of COVID. I also have a letter from my grandson. He always sends them to me to read at these meetings. So, and as you know, my grandson's David Gross, very successful in Bucksport, now playing at UMaine. And these are his words, not mine. 8-man football was implemented for coaches to take their teams there and rebuild them because they're fielding 15 to 20 kids. 8-man was not implemented for teams fielding 30 kids that want to switch because they've had a losing season and it's not fun anymore. Bucksport struggled last year, and it means that the kids need to step it up and the coaches and put some work in. Moving to 8-man because it's tough is just sending a wrong message to these kids, in my opinion. The idea to roll over and move down to 8-man because they couldn't compete with Southern schools, in my opinion, is, sorry, I lost it. Let's see. It's sending the wrong message to these kids that they can't compete with Southern schools anymore. And it's teaching them to back down when the going gets tough, in my opinion. It's been a year in a new competitive football league. There are going to be rough starts. I just would much rather see Bucksport want to come back with a vengeance and play these teams that beat them last season. And if after this season, if numbers are down and they're still getting their, I'll say butt kicked, then move them.
Thank you.
These seniors played in a state championship their freshman year, and they know the work it takes to get there, but only a select few seems to be putting that type of work in anymore. Another thing that bothers me is when we were playing, we always had teams that had losing seasons, and for the schools who had over 20 kids fielded, it was never a discussion to switch. You look at Dover, they are in the same boat as us with numbers, but you don't see them wanting to move down, but they are also still winning. The Southern schools lift, their coaches coach them at lifts, and that is maybe a difference. Kids that Bucksport have started playing are mentally and physically developed because of coaching. I walk in the high school and I only see half the kids now lifting like they did when I was in school. I also see hardly any of them lifting together. They're all on separate workout schedules doing their own thing. Although Bucksport was losing, they were competing with every team they played last year. They just need to change a lot of little things and just work hard. It boils down to coaches and players putting in as much, if not more time than the Southern schools. And it didn't happen last season because of COVID. With a good off season of training and growth, Bucksport will flourish in 11-man football.
My name is David Gross. I volunteered with the Bucksport football program for many years. I'm the head wrestling coach here at high school and the head wrestling coach in middle school. I'm not sure the reason to go 8-man. As far as I'm concerned, as far as I've learned or not, my knowledge is that 8-man is a developmental league, just like my mother just said. This team is returning now. Last year, a year after COVID, with the season being canceled, I know a handful of kids that didn't come out that are planning to play this year. And for people to say, oh, the team struggled, the team did this, the team did that. Struggling is part of life. I mean, I wouldn't judge success on lining yourself up against weaker teams to blow them out 50-0. That's not teaching any life lessons. Realizing that you have to go to work, realizing that if you want to be successful, you have to get in the weight room, you have to do things off season, you have to do extra, is a life lesson. And we were in, other than 2 games, we were in every game. We were in every single game last season, other than 2 games. Starting last season, there were 3 kids returning that had varsity experience. Only 3. Okay. Your 10th graders that started or that played in the varsity game, their last game was in middle school. So, when people say, oh, they struggled, that's a shell shock to come from middle school to a varsity level. I don't care how good you are. I don't care how strong you are. It is a huge difference. It's huge. Both of my kids, both of my sons, their freshman year, their first game, were completely shell shocked. Okay, we're to the point where I've never seen them like that before. It's just a big step. All right. So from returning 3 kids, okay, to coming back this season, there's now 6 returning linemen that played significant roles for Bucksport. There are 4 wide receivers / defensive backs returning that had significant playing time. There's a 1,000-yard passer and a 1,000-yard rusher returning. I just don't see where we're a developmental team. Okay, the year that we went to the state championship, there were 35 kids on the team. And in the team picture, all right, I don't know how many were not missing in the picture. Okay, last year there were 30. So I don't see where the huge difference is, or where it's, where this that we're rebuilding, need to rebuild is coming from. I just don't understand it, I guess. So I just want to throw these facts out. And the other thing is, I think it really boils down to what the kids want to do, what the kids that are playing want to do. You know, regardless of what coaches want to do or what parents want to do, it's the kids that have to go play Friday night. And I think that they should be the ones that you're asking. What do you kids want to do? What do you feel like? You know, do you want to stay in 11 man? Do you want to play teams that you can beat, but you're gonna have to put in work. You're not gonna have days where you can slack off. Every game is gonna be, you know, every week is gonna be a work week. You're not gonna have Washington Academies. You're not gonna have Stearns. You're not gonna have teams where you go blow out 50-0 and put in your JV in the second quarter. You know, but I just think that the kids should be involved in decision making. That's it.
Good one, sir, David. All right, my name is Anthony McGuire. I live here in Bucksport, graduated here and played football here. I've been part of football in this town for, well, this sophomore class, I've coached for over a decade. Started when they were in first grade. I'm assuming that this is an informative type of meeting that we're having here to give some insight, some feelings and things like that. My understanding was that 8-man football isn't a developmental type of program, but to help the programs that are struggling in numbers to build their numbers back up. I do agree with all the points that have been said tonight about getting in the weight room, putting in work in the off seasons. That stuff does carry with you throughout life. If you want something, you have to go out and get it. And that letter that Carolyn read about her grandson saying you don't see all of these kids doing that anymore. I do know of a bunch of kids that are in the weight room year round, putting in extra work throughout the season to get better, but you don't see a whole team aspect doing that. And I think a lot of it has to do with kids are 3-sport athletes. They just don't have the time to be in the weight room. Once they got practices and homework and curricular and things like that, you do get kind of burnt out. Do I think 8-man football is a bad thing? No. It's still tackling. You still kick off. You still run down the field. You pass, you catch, you run. There's 3 less people on the field. I don't know which way I want to go with this, to tell you the truth. I am a traditionalist. I like 11-man football just because I've been a part of it. Will 8-man kill us? No, we're not dissolving a football program here. We are staying, playing ball. And it might be a good way to develop these younger kids, to give them some ample JV time, to be prepared to get onto a varsity football field, which I think that hurt last year, where we did have freshmen, sophomores, and some juniors out there that hadn't played on a varsity field before, playing against 18-year-old boys that have been lifting for 3 or 4 years, essentially playing against grown men. It might give us an opportunity to build our JV program up, let them have them ample time on the field with that program, and have kids that can sub in. You're right, we were in every game last year. I feel we were. But when it come down towards the end of the games, we just didn't have the kids on the sideline to sub up. Would 8-man help that? They might, because we would have the extra players to put in, where we're not trying to put these younger kids in there that really aren't really ready for a varsity field. So take it as you want, but I figured this was an informative thing. These were my feelings on this situation, how my perspective of what I thought 8-man was versus 11-man. That's pretty much all I have to say. Thank you.
Hi, Tyler Hott, I live in Orland. I'm a senior year in high school. I played since freshman year I started. I played one way my freshman year, and going from freshman year to my senior year, I've seen the numbers decrease. I've seen the skill level decrease. I've seen practice numbers decrease. It got to the point this year where we had I think probably 5, 6 coaches practicing with us, giving us that extra people that we didn't have on the team. 8-man should be a good thing for Bucksport if we decide to go that way. I'm in favor of 8-man. I think the decision to go 8-man should be with the kids. I know there are a lot of boys that want to stay 11-man, but it's more of what's coming up. I think there was 8 8th graders maybe, and they had a hard time practice. I mean, they're doing kickoffs against themselves. You can run down the field all you want, but if you're not hitting each other and you're not getting into it, you're not learning. So I think it's more of what's coming up and what's at the high school, and more of a skill thing and a size thing. Our numbers might still be good, but I think we got to look at more than what we have and what's coming. So, thank you.
Sean Gagan from Bucksport. All of these facts, actually, that you've heard tonight are very good facts. David is correct. We were in every game this year, for sure, until the end, probably halfway through the third and fourth quarter. Some of the concerns are just what was stated, is that with numbers and numbers, and week to week, your numbers are up and they're down. I don't know the exact numbers for 8-man football. I'm not suggesting you go 8 or 11. What I will say is that when you make the decision, make sure that you make it for the kids. I know there's a lot of things out there saying that the coaches want to go 8-man football. That's not 100% true. What is true is that when you look at the numbers, at some point in the town of Bucksport, that's going to happen. I don't know when it is. I've been saying this for 2 or 3 years, that if the numbers keep dwindling, going from the 40, 45 that we used to have down to 30, 35, 30, and then during the week, halfway through the season, having 19 kids on the field, at some point that may happen. I have no idea when that will be or if it will be, but the only thing I ask is when you make the decision, keep the kids in mind that are playing the game, because they're the most important.
First of all, I'm Joel Sankey. I'm head coach at Bucksport. I live in Brewer. I taught here for about 40 years, and I've coached football at Bucksport or May Maritime or Bangor and back to Bucksport since the mid-70s. I've seen a lot of changes here. When we first had football here, there was a freshman football team that had over 20 players on it. We had over 50 players on our varsity football team. The enrollment at the school at that time was close to 600 kids. What is it today? As mentioned, and I agree with all these facts. I mean, I wish we weren't here. Believe me, I'm a traditionalist. I'd love to play 11-man football. Can we put 11 guys on the football field next year? Absolutely, we can. We did it this year. And I thought going into last year, we would be weak because of what was mentioned. We had 3 or 4 kids that had varsity experience, and most of these kids hadn't played football, contact football, since the 7th or 8th grade. COVID really hurt us. 3 years ago, we were in the state championship. COVID happened. We played 7-on-7 the next year. I truly believe that next year we would have been back in the state championship. Those kids graduated without an opportunity to play again up on Bucksport. The 8th grade had like 10 kids. The next large group of athletes coming out of the junior high or coming out of those schools is in the 5th and 6th grade. You hate to say it, but numbers are an issue. As coaches just said, there were times this year during practice, and some of you have played football. We did not have enough players to have a look team. We had to use assistant coaches that were young, volunteer guys that love to play, that have come back to coach, which is an honor for me to see that happen. And they would line up and they would play. We have young kids on this team that if we put them into a varsity game with the competition that we played, we're going to risk injuries. But last year, we started out with, against Herman, we did well. We beat Belfast, we did well, but we lost 2 kids. We did not have players that we could replace them with. We've been in this position before with these numbers. But out of roughly, let's say 30 kids, we had 15 or 16 of those kids that could play ball, that were athletes. We don't have it. David is correct. We have experience coming back. We have linemen coming back. We have 2 probably of the best receivers in this whole area. And we have the quarterback that's probably the best quarterback in this area, and then a running back that's a tank. We have no backup quarterback. We have no backup running backs. If any of those players get injured. Now, would 8-man football make a difference? I agree with Coach McGuire. I think I grew up in an area in states out west where 8-man football is popular. There are players that play 8-man football, and if you're good, colleges will find you. They even play 6-man football. The state that has the most 8-man football is Alabama. Those kids go on and play in college. So if that's a concern, I think you can kind of put that to a side. With 8-man football, we would have a complete JV schedule, which would give the younger kids an opportunity to play. Plus, we are one of the founding member teams of the old LTC. There's 2 teams that are not in the LTC anymore, and that's Dover and us. The other teams all went to 8-man. Bobby Sinclair, who coaches at Orono, who was here with us for 1 year. The first year we went to the state championship in 2000. He didn't want to go to 8-man football either. After they have done it, he said, I don't see Orono ever going back to 11-man football. And he said, I don't think anybody in the LTC will go back to 8-man football or 11-man football again. They like it. They enjoy it. The kids love it. It's a fast game. It's an offensive game. It's an exciting game. And as they said, it's blocking and tackling and X and O's. The difference is the field is not as wide. Now, there was concern that a parent talked to me about, well, you can only have 8 on the field. So who's not going to be on the field is your lineman. And those big kids can't do anything else. They can't go play soccer. That may be true, but the depth we have on the offensive line right now, you could have units. You could have 3 playing offense and 3 playing defense. We could get kids on the field. So I see pros and cons both ways. Do I want to play 8-man football? No. I would rather play 11-man football. But I'm also a realist, and numbers dictate. Could we play 11-man football next year? Absolutely, we could. We could play 8-man football also. I appreciate what you guys are doing and listening to this. This town has been special to me. Football has been special to me in this community. The players, the friendship. When we first started here with Coach Keene, Coach Richards, we're very similar to where we are right now. It took years to build it back in. The football program in Bucksport, according to Max Prep, is rated in the top 10 in the state. We have been successful here. These kids that graduated from here and play for us know what winning is all about. They know what hard work is all about. This younger group of kids that we have, the first game we played on the road down 2 hours from here. Coming back home on the bus, it reminded me of a junior high field trip. We were laughing, joking, and having a good time. There would have been times before with some of those other kids, they would have probably been thrown off the bus, but it was different. So it's not only teaching them X and O's, it's teaching them how to get prepared for a game, how to work for it, dedication, and all that. So I really appreciate it, guys. Thank you very much.
Do we have any other public comment? Okay, then we'll move to a presentation by Aaron.
There, it is. All right. So obviously, I just want to start out by saying, this is my second year, obviously, and I truly respect how much football means to this community. It is incredible. I got to experience my first game with fans and a band this year, and it's just an incredible experience. I understand the tradition. I appreciate all the sentiments, and I think ultimately, Coach Gagan nails it on the head. Whatever direction we go, it truly is about the kids, and that's the part that I hope we, remain focused, in all of this. And my presentation tonight is more, I think we all know, the benefits and why 11-man football is so special, right? And again, you touched upon many of those things. My hope tonight is to kind of lay out some facts and really focus in and drill down on the 8-man piece so that we can understand that better and ultimately make a decision that, again, is in the best interest of our student athletes. So I'm going to start with the numbers piece, and that's a huge part of the equation. And looking at this, the MPA is coming out. 8-man football is growing. As Coach Sankey mentioned, it is taking off. 6-man football, 9-man football, 8-man football. It is surging, and it's surging in part because of the decrease in participation nationally. Since from 2009 to 2018, there's been a 21% decrease in the number of people participating in football, and as a result, 8-man football, right, and other programs have started to morph into that sort of league. So here in Maine, there's no different, right? We're seeing a resurgence because of decreased participation in football. And as a result, the MPA has kind of come up with recommendations and cutoffs going forward, okay? No longer, I think it's safe to say, is 8-man football considered a developmental football, okay? So effective this fall, the MPA has kind of set place these guidelines for numbers, okay? So these are recommendations, right? Obviously with lots of local control to a degree. So less than 22 athletes, we're looking at a recommendation by the MPA to strongly go 8-man. 22 to 33 athletes, which is kind of where we're nestled right now, is you kind of get that option, right? That's a discussion that you're going to have to revisit every year potentially, depending on skill and returning players. And there's a lot of variables. 34 more athletes at the conclusion of this coming season would automatically be considered an 11-man football team by the MPA. So let's say let's say next year, whatever direction we go, we end up with 38 kids. In the MPA's eyes, the following year, we will be considered an 11-man program unless we petition down to play 8-man football. So take Orono, for example. They have really good numbers. They have around 38 kids participating in football, but because of other non-competitive reasons, they will petition down to play 8-man football. So these are the cutoffs that we're kind of dealing with that are being put in place by the MPA effective this fall. And we'll going forward, this is kind of the recommendation that they're looking at to kind of give us some clear-cut definition as to what constitute 8-man football and what teams should be thinking about and considering 8-man football. Looking at our numbers, right? And again, this has been a huge topic here. I've done some digging. Part of these facts here that I have, I've spoken with seniors, returning seniors, every single one of them. I've talked to the 8th graders. I've talked to a lot of people. So these numbers kind of are stemming from my conversations and looking at what we have at the end of last season on the middle school roster and the high school roster, and projecting that out obviously until 2025. This year we are projecting 33 athletes. All right. Now, could we have more? Yes. Right. Could we have less? Yes. But this number is solely based off of athletes that we know are returning, right, and that I've spoken to and have confirmed the fact that they are returning. Okay. The next year we are graduating 12 seniors off of this year's roster coming up. That number then goes to 26 athletes. We have 5 athletes currently in the 7th grade class that play football. All right, so that number is 26. The next year, right, we drop to 25 athletes. Right, we're graduating 7, which would be this year's sophomore class, and gaining 6 graders. All right, not until 2025 do we see a resurgence, as somebody mentioned here earlier, with our 5th and 6th grade program, which there's an increase in numbers. Currently, right now, we have 16 fifth graders participating in football, which is a great sign, right? So, you know, these are the numbers, and this is kind of what we're looking at and what we're dealing with, and why we're here tonight, kind of considering, you know, this potential. Oops. So what are the benefits? And again, coaches and others have spoken to some of those benefits. We know the benefits of 11-man football, right? If we go in and why, right? So what are the benefits? I've obviously highlighted the decreased numbers. It's huge, right? You know, we started this year with around 34, I believe. We ended with about 26 healthy bodies, right? You know, as mentioned, you look teams, right? It was really challenging for our coaches. They had to get really creative, you know, come up with ways for our players to be competitive on Friday nights. You know, so decreased numbers is a huge part of this equation. There's no way around that. And that kind of ties in nicely to the athlete safety piece, right? You know, looking at, you know, the 34 athletes, 26 healthy, obviously, if you're putting players on the field that are not prepared to be there in some cases, right? And you have low numbers, you're putting kids at risk, right? And that is a huge concern, right? The other piece of this is looking at the schedule, right? Currently, right now, we play a predominantly Class D schedule, and that involves a lot of travel, certainly. This would kind of reignite some of those traditional rivalries. We talk about tradition, right? We want to preserve tradition. This puts us, you know, move to 8-man will put you back into a more traditional environment where you're playing Mattonacook Academy, you're playing Dexter, you're playing Orono, you're playing Mount View, right? You're playing teams that you have histories with, not only in football, but in other sports, right? So there's that, you know, there's that schedule piece that's a huge part of that. And again, I wouldn't be remiss to mention the increase in games as far as JV goes, right? And if you're building a program, and any coach I think would agree with this, if you're building programs, right, your championships are really won at that JV level. It is huge, right? And last year we played 3 JV games, and some of those kids never saw the varsity field, and they played 3 games all year. That certainly is going to contribute to this over here, right? So that is how 8-man football can reignite a program. It gets more kids involved, right? And that in theory will attract more kids to the program, which can lead to increased numbers and ultimately more success and greater experiences for our student athletes. And again, just that kind of ties into the future, right? You know, a move to 8-man football, should that be the decision, you know, isn't necessarily, it's not a definitive, this is it, but this is an opportunity to maybe springboard and revitalize and regroup and move forward to a stronger future. Just wanted to throw these quotes out here as well for you. I've done some talking, obviously, with administrators, former coaches, current coaches, and they reiterate a lot of what has already been echoed up here, that, you know, it's a great experience, the kids love it. It's football, right? And that's kind of the theme I think you see throughout all these comments. I'm not going to read them all, certainly. You know, people need to get their head around the fact that this is football. It's blocking, tackling, kids are banging away each other and then picking each other up. I think you're going to see more and more people jump into the 8-man game for a variety of reasons. And that's Bob Sinclair from Orono, Fred Lauer, you know, to stress that 8-man football has saved, you know, a lot of communities in the state of Maine. Right? And then Dwayne Crawford, the former coach at Ellsworth High School, you know, obviously talking about how positive experiences it was. Just want to throw this out there as well, that, you know, 8-man football is growing, and the talent will be found no matter what type of football they're playing. Currently, right now in the NFL, you know, there's many more. If you just kind of do a quick search, but these are 4 that, you know, notable NFL athletes that, you know, when you're talking about being recognized, if that's, you know, the direction we end up going, you have a variety of athletes here. You have special teams, the kicker, Josh Brown, right? You have defenders in Greenway and Van Der Esch, right? And you have offensive talent in Tariq Cohen, right? So certainly a move to 8-man football is not a deterrent or a decreased opportunities for our student athletes in any way, shape, or form. The last thing I want to leave you is just kind of a real clip of last year's state championship in 8-man football. You know, we're talking about the kids and the experiences for the kids. And it's football. Those quotes mentioned, it's football, right? This is still football. And I just want to show you the highlight, just to kind of highlight the fact that these kids in that moment, it was such a special experience for these kids. It was Dexter against Moranicook in the 21-1 state championship, and it was one of the best football games of all the state championships. So I'm just going to kind of play this, and you can kind of see, you know, some of the differences. You'll see the narrow field. But ultimately, what I want you to really focus on is the kids, right, in that moment, and kind of what they're going through, and how does this look any different than 11?
Shutouts. Small school 8-man championship. Dexter from the north and Maranacook of Reedfield in the south. Third quarter, Chris Reed, the QB keeper. Maranacook up 30-20, looking like they're in control. Here comes Dexter. Nathan Schobel with a touchdown run, and it's 30-28. We go to the fourth. Teams traded scoring chances through most of the fourth. Dexter gets to the Maranacook 10 as time is running out. Last play of the game, Bryce Connor scrambles, nothing there. Goes to the other side of the field. He's got something there. Avery Gagnon with the catch. He goes into the end zone for the touchdown on the final play. 34-30. Dexter wins the state championship, their first since 1987. What an epic day on the gridiron.
So I just want to leave you with that little piece there. And again, that game was one of the best. That was the final play, the final drive of the state championship. And again, those kids had a ton of memories, and there's something to consider there as well, obviously. So at this point, I'll take any questions you may have. Yeah.
You said that you can petition to go back down if your numbers are up. Can you do the opposite? If you're projecting that you're going to have a lot of numbers the next year, can you petition to go up?
So can you petition to go? No.
Like, let's say you had 20 and you were on 8-man,
I see,
and
okay.
next year you're going to have 40.
Yeah, you could, if in theory, if that's the direction you wanted to go. I mean, they give the local.
It's not typical.
But it's not, that is not typical.
Okay.
That is not.
Aaron, do you think that kids are gonna gain or lose interest with this 8-man? I mean, the feeder programs right now, we've seen them through the years have diminished.
Yeah, I mean, I've spoken a lot with the returning players on the roster that I provided for you there, and I will tell you overwhelmingly, the kids are supportive of this, especially in the senior class. And the excitement, I think they see it as an opportunity, to learn, to be challenged. And I think it has a really good positive impact of growing the program, especially like I say at the JV level. And I think that's where you get your excitement. That's where you get your skill, your competitiveness, and that depth that we certainly need to move forward.
Is there gonna be a plan to get, if we happen to go 8-man, go back to 11-man, if it happens to?
Yeah,
in
and
a
that,
case where we might get the
yep,
numbers.
and I'm guessing we would be back here in a similar discussion
Every year? Or?
That's something that, we would have that discussion.
Aaron, do you see a downside to 8-man?
I mean, I think the people who spoke, I mean, certainly the tradition piece, but, I see positives on both sides.
But when I think of tradition, we're not in the Little 10 anymore. Talk about tradition and our old time rivals. My wife was from Dexter. Boy, I love beating them. I used to love that. But I miss that tradition.
Yeah.
And that would be back. We'd have that back. We're playing Orono and Dexter and those guys.
That's certainly a pro. Yeah.
It sounds to me like this is more competitive than what an 11-man game would be, that you would foster higher levels of play with your athletes, right? The ones who really want to make the team will make the team, right? Versus like some saying the ones that play the 3 sports may not have the same drive as somebody who says, no, I'm all about the football. I want to be on the football team and be a more competitive, stronger competitive player. I don't watch football. I'm just saying, it just sounds more competitive.
I mean, I like what Coach Sankey said about the line, maybe the ones to suffer, but if you get creative and use the unit system, that solves it for me. I mean, that's a great idea. So I was worried about that because the kid's gonna lose interest. Yeah, I'm not gonna play. I'm not, why bother, but.
And in my conversations, speaking of losing interest, I have heard of no returning player that if this were to be the direction we go, that it's told me, I'm not interested in playing.
Yeah.
I do like that it affords for more JV games because that is really natural. How you grow your athletes in any sport.
Be able to go
to play.
True. Yeah, I mean, why play if there's no games?
Yeah, I was gonna say the same thing. I'm hoping with the numbers that we would be able to have a much better JV schedule rather than.
Everyone in the LTC last year played a full JV schedule, and that's during COVID.
That's-
So
that's
take that out of the
valuable too.
equation. I mean, they played a full JV schedule. They played 8 games. We played,
Aaron, why the 3?
and again, the 3 was in part because of injury. That.
On
was
our
certainly-
part or other teams or?
Yeah, mostly our part. I don't recall canceling a game because of other teams having injury problems. And again, the coaches could attest that a little bit more, but other teams we're playing certainly had increased, had greater numbers than what we did for the most part. We played John Baps twice. Their numbers are similar to ours, and we made it work. But yeah, it was a struggle certainly to play a full JV schedule, and moving to 8-man would alleviate that problem and get kids playing games. And again, that's what builds programs.
Aaron, have you talked to the Dover, like David said, have you talked to the Dover AD?
Yeah, so their situation is, in terms of numbers and projections, their projections are increasing. So as far as numbers go, they're projecting an increase in numbers, where our projections are looking a little bit less at the moment.
So, Abby's got a question.
Was there anybody you talked to that spoke unfavorably of the 8-man?
No, I mean, I certainly had some seniors who would prefer to stay 11, but the majority of them were in favor of the,
And of the
potentially making-
people that have gone to 8-man, like other teams, was there anyone that really regrets it? I know there was a lot of favorable.
No, in some regard, it saved their programs and rejuvenated interest to the point where, maybe down the road again, they could look at moving back to 11 should they want to do that.
Will be a potential standard of enrollment, will we have to go back to 11? Do you think? Is that-
As far as enrollment goes,
Right.
No, it's solely based on your numbers and
Of kids
going into the
playing.
next year. Yes.
Okay.
There's schools that are a lot bigger than we are that are playing it.
That's correct.
MDI, elsewhere.
Yep. Waterville, yeah, this year there was Shepherd's was 8-man football. And they're moving back to 11. So they're a school again that petitioned, to play down to 8-man football, right? Because of a numbers issue, a perceived numbers issue. And then they ended up, increasing their numbers, and now we're moving back to 11.
Maybe I missed this, but who else is gonna be potentially going back to 8, going down to 8?
To my knowledge, right now, we're the only school in our class that is going to be doing.
In our class?
Yeah.
And who else in other classes,
I'm not aware of any at this point.
But everybody else is pretty much already there, right?
They're already there, yeah.
So who would be the teams that we would play?
So you'd be looking at Mount View, Ellsworth, MDI, Dexter, Matador. I'm missing one. Orno.
So we would play MDI.
Yes.
And that always.
So you
has
you have
been-
those 6 teams. is
That
what
has
the
always been
LTC
our number one rifle.
Yeah, I currently have, we are in the mix of having a schedule. We have a schedule for 11-man that should be go that direction. I also have been in the mix of, if we go 8-man, I have that prepared as well. And what you'd be looking at is playing those 6 schools that I just mentioned. So you play one team each time in the LTC, and then you'd have 2 crossover games with other 8-man schools. It's Southern Maine or.
On a positive note, travel would be a lot less for players and for parents, grandparents, and people who want to go. So you're gonna, in a home game, you're gonna have a much better crowd, and we can always use the money from the gate. So I mean, that shouldn't be our only factor, but.
So for those seniors who have developed and trained as being an 11-man team, how difficult is the shift to going to the 8-man? Is it like playing doubles tennis and now you're playing single? Or is it not that great of a difference? I don't really understand.
Well, I can
what
maybe let the coaches speak a little bit to that. Coach Sankey, if you want to chime in, but.
Yeah, I don't think it's that big of a difference. From the coaches I've talked, I've never coached 8-man football. I didn't play it. But what I've been told, it's a much quicker game. They get to the corner much quicker. You better have kids that can tackle. If you've got kids that can catch the ball and throw the ball, it's a wide open game. for a player to move from 11-man to 8-man, I don't think it's that big of a move. Blocking assignments would be similar. The plays that we run would be similar. There would have to be some changes that would be made. Moving from 8-man to 11-man, I don't think would be that hard either. These kids adapt very, very well. And again, if we had enough, I'm a traditionalist. That's all I've ever seen was our coach is 11-man football. If we could, 11-man football would be what we would love to play. Looking at these numbers in the future, as Coach Gagan said last year, it's going to happen in Bucksport, whether it's last year or this year or down the road. If you have 25 kids on your roster and you have 2 kids that are ineligible or a kid that's injured, now you're looking at 23, 22 kids. And that makes practice very, very difficult. JV games, very difficult. We had kids this year that were JV players that were playing varsity.
Would you project that for next year? If we were to say 11-man next year, would you have that same type of situation? Where
Very
you're gonna
similar.
have those freshmen and sophomores or kids that are new to the program with limited playing time, stepping up to a varsity role? Because, you know, a freshman versus a senior is kind of boys versus men,
Absolutely.
and it's not necessarily the safest situation.
We have a good senior class and a good junior class. And then after that, it falls off. We may not, with those numbers, you don't want a kid, let's say a junior that plays on the varsity, plays defense. Could he play JVs? Possibly, just on offense. But it would be difficult, again, because of numbers. It could come down to position. We may have 6 varsity linemen, but only 3 JV linemen. And I don't know what we would do then. We'd have to get a kid that's not familiar with it, put him in line, put him in center.
Anybody can do that, right?
Yeah, I know. It would be difficult. It could be done. Give them an opportunity to play. Those kids lost that whole COVID year. And as we mentioned, the last time they played was 7th or 8th grade.
Right.
I have some injury questions. So we're talking a lot about kids getting hurt. It's okay. We're talking a lot about kids getting hurt, so we're concerned about safety. How are the injuries across the other schools? Are the other schools seeing similar injury rates? Is it something that we're doing? Is there something that we could be doing?
It's similar.
Are we the only ones getting hurt, or all the other schools?
No,
it's that 2 years off.
That's
a
true.
concern.
There were other players, we would go and play games and you'd see 5 or 6 kids on the sideline from other teams, just with their game jerseys on and off.
Maybe a little bit to do with time off.
I think that had a lot to do with it. We couldn't get in the weight room. There was a lot of things we could not do with these kids. That makes a huge difference. The 2 kids that were injured for us that played are both coming back.
Non-contact injuries as well, right? One of them was.
Yeah, one was.
Do you have any other questions for them?
I just wanted to ask, is based on not playing a year and with the things with COVID last year, never knowing which player could, is this the time to move to 8-man, or should we stay 11-man for another year to see this?
What would you think of that, Aaron? I mean, the numbers that you have here, we are close to that 34 projected for the next year.
Again, with numbers, it's one of those, it's hard to predict. And again, that's
just a prediction.
It's a prediction. Yeah. I mean, that's.
It's a competition. When I was going to playing last year, we were in most of our games, but when say the 8 seniors that we had to play and they got tired and we had to take a play off here and there, it changed the game for us. Now say go 8-man, which I again am in favor of, because that having more kids on the sideline change that.
Yeah, I mean, I would assume you're gonna increase your depth, which is then going to, benefit Your whole team? Yeah, absolutely.
Well, what I keep thinking about is Coach Sankey, when he said player safety. That was his concern. And I think that's a major concern, player safety. If you went with 8-man, better chance. And there's nothing saying that it's going to be forever.
It's difficult for me to imagine a time when we don't have a ton of kids in the football program. You know, I'm from the late 80s. There were 3 overfilled teams. You go to the football game and there'd be a string of people in jerseys that were never going to play. And they kind of knew it, but they were still on the team anyway. And, you know, the idea of lack of depth was not there. You know, it was a very full freshman team. There was a very full JV team. There was a varsity team, which was, I believe, only seniors. And there were seniors who didn't play. You know, and you know, it is kind of sad when you look back at that and you think, well, why can't we just do what we always did? The way I look at this smaller scale is that maybe it gives more opportunity to play. Particularly, I like the idea of the JV team. I think it would be very hard to build a team if you knew that there wasn't any hope of you ever playing. And from seeing my son play soccer, which I understand is very different, he gets tired. People get tired. And to expect, you know, a player to play the full game out because there's no hope for reinforcements, I don't really see that as being a real selling point. So those are just my thoughts on the process. I would love to keep everything the way that it always was. But that also includes parade floats where we get to smash the Spartans. And I'm encouraged with the idea of us going up against those guys. Anyone else have anything they wanted to say before we ask for motion?
It's just, I too somewhat of a traditionalist. You know, played here. Commiserate a lot with what Kay said about the senior class. When I played, there was 22 of us that played from 7th grade on up through together. The class behind us was another 22, 23, the junior class. And it's important, you know, I think to be able to fulfill that going forward. Is what Mr. Sankey said about numbers and safety. That's a concern of mine too. Is you have those 8 kids hurt, which is I believe so much where you were last year. You were what, 34 to 26, something like that number. Is that a fair place to put kids that are sophomores and freshmen against some of the talent of Class B talent? Correct, that's what we're playing in Southern Maine.
Yeah, I mean, you're looking at, you know, Winthrop and Clearwater.
I look at also the lack of a JV program. I'm a little conflicted on this. I appreciate everybody's comments and passion around programs. So I guess that's all. I just wanted to get that out there. But thank you.
It's a different strategic game as well, too, right? 8 versus 11, right? Your game strategy has to change, and it allows you to try things because you have fresher players and a different, maybe, perspective from the 11 man, where you said it's a little bit faster. Again, I don't.
Probably more of an emphasis on passing. The running game is certainly still an integral part. I mean, defense, like Coach Sankey said, you're gonna be faster.
I'm sorry, it's just, I'm, we're not
She's making
football
good
fans. I just, it's just what I'm seeing from what you showed me tonight. Is that you could potentially be looking at building a stronger 8-man team with a better strategic performance if you can and keep better players and, and hone your players towards that strategy goal of you want to be here, do your best, go get a Tiger, that's just me. Again, like I don't watch football, I don't know football. I wouldn't know what a linebacker even is. I don't even, Tom Brady, who, I mean. Yeah, I mean, it's. Yeah.
I've been here for a long time in this town, and Coach Sankey knows. I've seen from when I was a little kid all the way up through 11 man is the way to go, and it's the tradition, but we've also seen the schedule change, and who are these teams, Lisbon, Oak Hill, I don't see any, well, I'm sorry.
I was just thinking about the Winthrop Wimps.
Winthrop.
Oh, sorry, did I say?
Yeah, it's a lot. I mean, we're used to Dexter and obviously John Batts and those teams, in Orem especially. It's a hard pill to swallow, and we all hate the reality of it, especially being the traditionalists we are, but this could be a new tradition revisited. In other words, going back to those teams, we're gonna have to face that someday, very soon, I think. But as long as we have the flexibility of possibly going back to 11 man, I can see it being a good thing, but like Carolyn said, the COVID thing, are we jumping the gun here? That's the question.
The only thing I want to say about COVID, that's not gone.
Right.
That's true.
Right.
That could resurface again next year, so. There are factors that we can't control. Injuries you don't control, those happen. You
Right.
train, you prepare, unfortunately, they happen. COVID, we had kids that were taken out of the mix because of it, that hurt us.
Right.
Those things we can't control.
I just wanted to thank the player that spoke, because I don't know if there are other ones, but I'd like to know. I kind of wish I knew how more players felt. I can only, I know public comment's gone, but I don't know if you guys feel differently before we do a vote, like. Is that
Adrian,
okay?
would you like to say something?
Yeah. You don't have to be good, this isn't like.
Not graded, Adrian, you're fine. Say your words.
We just want to know what you feel about it. Just take a deep breath.
It's all right. I'm ready to.
I would want Alderman, because Amen takes a couple players on the field, to the lineman. I'm a lineman, of course. And
No, her and I really need that education.
Yeah, first lineman
I
ever.
play basketball, you only need 5 minutes, so I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
All right. You don't have to, if that's, if you've said your piece, I didn't mean to put you on the spot either. I'm sorry, and I thank you for coming forward. It's just nice to know how the players feel.
Amen. I might not get a chance to play as much. And I probably would play most of the time. Which I'm fine with.
Thank you.
My name is Casey Finley. I'm a freshman here at Bucksville High School. I play on the football team, obviously. I feel a big part of last year's season was a lot of injuries. And, a lot of the games got canceled, like the JV games got canceled due to COVID and injuries. And, that's just, I feel like the up and coming 8th graders right now and 7th graders that are gonna be coming up here in 2 years, they're gonna wanna have JV games. I mean, even though like a lot of them are probably gonna be playing varsity games, there's still a chance, opportunity to grow the varsity team into when we have larger numbers for this football program. So yeah, I mean, it's just, as long as there's a possibility to at least play 11 men when our numbers are back and growing, I feel that's the best choice.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you for letting me.
No, that
Do
was,
that.
that was very important, and we have some well-spoken players. It was nice to do. Need any further discussion, or should we move from there?
Now, what is this vote going to entail? Is it going to be we're going 8-man if we vote yes?
It's always a positive,
Or is it just,
but no motion has been
Depends
made.
on
or just
Make a motion.
recommendation for more conversation on it? Or we-
No, we're gonna be voting one way or the other.
This is it?
I
Okay.
believe Mr. Ward needs to make a commitment to a schedule. So a decision's gonna have to be made.
Okay. Well, as long as it's not permanent.
Well, this is difficult because emotion is also playing a part in this, and I understand that, but I'm gonna move that. This is difficult, but Bucksville High School moved from 11-man football to 8-man football beginning in the fall of 2022.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor of the motion? And that is unanimous. Thank you, everyone, for coming, for giving comment. Difficult, but hopefully all work out well next year. Now we have calendar and announcements.
Yeah, similar calendar what you saw last time. We are, I don't know if you plan on doing a budget workshop or at 7:20 now. But, if not, we have a budget workshop set for the 31st of this month.
We have a budget workshop right next. Finishes. Anybody need to get a glass of water?
So we need to adjourn this meeting.
I'm just wondering, should I adjourn and then reopen?
Yeah, let's adjourn.
Adjourn
Okay, I
and break
move
the
that we
water.
adjourn.
Second.
All right, all those in favor of adjourning?